Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Z. Welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today, I'm going to be talking about the words narcissist, narcissistic, narcissism, and narcissistic personality disorder, and how they are completely overused and used incorrectly all over social media. And what it does is it not only waters down the term, makes it sound less important, but it also prevents people from coming forward who are really experiencing it. Because in addition to not even being able to explain the abuse, because that's how narcissistic abuse is, they're already scared they're not going to be believed. In addition to that, now they have to worry about people saying, oh my God, not everybody's a narcissist. So this episode is about that. This episode is going to help you to decipher between what is what means what, and how to use it effectively. Very informative episode. There's a ton of good nuggets of information in here, and I think you'll get a lot out of this. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. I am going to try to get through this as best as I can. I have had a cold now for going on maybe 2 weeks, so at this point, I think maybe my voice is just going to stay like this for all eternity. Anyway, I hope everybody had a wonderful new year and you're getting into the swing of things as we get back on track. So I had a topic in mind, but then I changed my mind last minute because this is what I do. But I had seen something on Instagram the other day, and it was about a reporter who was covering the fires in LA, which is beyond tragic. And I'm sure all of us have been affected by this in some way. And for those of you who have been and who have lost homes and loved ones and so much more, my heart is with you, and I am thinking of all of you. So I had seen a reporter, and there was a comment that was made in a news story or a post that said the reporter had pinned his jacket back to show his muscles, and that it was extremely narcissistic, and they were calling it a narcissistic reporter. And I don't really care or know why he pinned his jacket back. Maybe it was flying in the wind and it was uncomfortable. Maybe it was getting in the way of the camera. I have no idea. Point is, it doesn't matter, because this is why the words narcissist and narcissism and narcissistic are so poorly understood. Because they are constantly used in mainstream media in the wrong context. And I understand why they're used. I get that. But it really does a lot of damage to those who have gone through narcissistic abuse, who are struggling with it, who are even on the other side of it, or those of us like myself who treat people who are going through this. Here's why. Because narcissistic abuse survivors half the time aren't even aware of what, and to what extent, I should say, the abuse is, right? It's not just a toxic relationship where somebody's an asshole. It is so much more than that. And so when people say not everyone is a narcissist, you're absolutely right. Lord, help us if they were. But you're right. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And just because, and I've said this on Instagram, I have a reel on this that caused so much backlash, but just because a diagnosis or a word is trending and annoying the hell out of all of you because it's all that you're seeing, I'm throwing ADHD in there too because I see it with this too and it enrages me. Just because a diagnosis or a word is trending doesn't mean it still doesn't exist. And for those of you who say, yeah, but it's a really small percentage of the population, so stop talking about it so much, let me explain to you why it appears as if it's a small percentage of the population. In the DSM, which is the psychiatric kind of Bible for diagnoses, it has a very tiny percentage of people in the population, general population, that have narcissistic personality disorder. Here's why that number is so low. People with NPD do not seek treatment, do not stay in treatment, and never get diagnosed. A lot of the times we diagnose somebody with this, it's secondhand. Bad or good or indifferent to that, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that people are diagnosed secondhand. I will have somebody come into my office, or I will consult with somebody and they will give me a whole host of behaviors, multiple behaviors that fit the criteria for somebody who potentially has a personality disorder. Which personality disorder, that is what I have to work through with them. However, they're living with somebody who's extremely toxic, And as you go through it, you realize that their behaviors fit a very specific blueprint. For those of you who have not experienced narcissistic abuse, and this is not your fault, obviously, and thank God you haven't experienced this. I find those people are the ones that come back at me on posts and things like that, or to other people saying, not everyone's a narcissist. You need to take accountability for this too. It's the people that haven't experienced this type of abuse that usually are the ones that say that. And I understand why you say that. I completely get that. What I want this episode to be about is I need people to understand that when somebody is a narcissist, a true narcissist, has narcissistic personality disorder, the abuse that goes on in those relationships is on a very different level, and a level that you will not be able to understand unless you have gone through it yourself, or unless you specialize in it, in treating it. And that's just the fact of the matter. Consider yourselves lucky if let me say it this way. If your response to hearing about narcissism is one of, oh my God, can you shut up already? Not everybody's a narcissist. If that is your response, consider yourselves so unbelievably lucky that that's your response. Because if you have gone through it, that will not be your response. So again, if that is your response, consider yourself extremely lucky. And now listen, listen to me on this part. Narcissists are all abusive. Somebody with narcissistic personality disorder is always going to be abusive, whether it's physical, sexual, financial, emotional, psychological, it doesn't matter, but they will always be abusive. Not everybody who's toxic is a narcissist. Okay? So everybody who's a narcissist is abusive and toxic, but not everybody who is toxic is a narcissist. Now, is somebody who's abusive a narcissist? Let me break this down. Let's say that somebody has an alcohol problem or a drug problem. And when they drink or when they're high, they get extremely violent and they lash out and they're physically abusive, or they're emotionally abusive, or they're neglectful. When they're sober, however, they are none of those things. It's only when they're intoxicated. Is that person a narcissist? So what would have to happen is you would need to have them be sober for an extended period of time, have the drugs, all that, have their system regulate, have their brain chemistry kind of route itself, their brain reroute itself, and then work with them, or be in the relationship with them if it's safe, to see if their personality does in fact meet that criteria. If it doesn't, then what you have is somebody who is abusive as a result of intoxication. And now that they are sober and doing the work, there is none of that in their personality style. That's different. And that is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is somebody who is chronically always abusive. But here's the part that people don't get. With a narcissist, it's not just abuse. Okay? It's what also makes it difficult to identify is that they also come off extremely charming. So they don't always seem abusive, even with you. They may seem so loving, they may be doting, but because they want something from you, or because they want to confuse you and keep you stuck. Well, maybe the abuse isn't that bad because look how nice they're being to me now. So even when they're being charming, even when they're being nice, even when they appear to be caring, that is still under the umbrella of narcissistic abuse, because it's part of a cycle. It's a deliberate attempt to trick you into thinking they are being a certain way. They are faking or playing a role of somebody who is temporarily being caring or temporarily being supportive so that they can get something from you or manipulate you or gain power over you. Somebody who is not a narcissist will not be like that. Okay? They're going to maybe be an asshole to somebody who they don't like, but they're going to be, quote, themselves to other people. Okay? A narcissist is constantly acting. That's the difference. So when I see these words, and for those of you watching my YouTube channel right now and watching this video, you see my fingers being pressed against my temples. You may also hear outside some construction vehicles. I apologize if you're hearing that. Bear with me. the word narcissism and narcissist has been so overused, and you hear me talk about this all the time. It's been so overused for so long that the importance of it, I feel like, has been minimized. It has been watered down. And the reason why, going back to this now, it's so dangerous is because when somebody does want to come forward with their stories of narcissistic abuse, they may not want to because they're scared they're going to be hit with, oh my God, not everybody is a narcissist. Or, well, it takes two to tango. So, what's your role in this? And so they may not come forward because we have so many people who are so sick and tired of hearing about narcissism. And as somebody who educates as part of my job on narcissistic abuse, I'm actually thrilled that people are sick about hearing about it. Because that means that we're getting the message out there. I just need to make sure that you're getting the correct message. So this news story that comes out and it says the reporter is, this narcissistic reporter because he's pinned his jacket down to show off his muscles. I can't blame you if you're looking at that going, oh my God, like enough with the narcissism, right? Or people actually believing that the way you wear your clothing means you're a narcissist. No, it doesn't. Maybe it was hot. Or let's just say the man wanted to show off his muscles. Great. Is it inappropriate in the midst of what's going on in LA? Absolutely. But that's one thing that doesn't make somebody a narcissist. Narcissistic abuse, narcissistic personality disorder is made up of so many subtle layers, right? Yes, we have the grandiosity. Yes, we have the, really sensitive to criticism, the manipulation, the, gaslighting people, the thinking that they are entitled to things that they don't have to work hard for. Yeah, all of that. I get that. All of that's there. Yes. But it's so much more complex than that. It's the little things that the person who's experiencing it can't even figure out how to explain it. So imagine being hit with, oh my God, not everybody's a narcissist. Settle down, combined with the story I'm about to tell you. And this happened, not to me, this happened to somebody that I worked with a long time ago. I'm going to change a couple of the details, but this person was in a relationship with a very narcissistic, abusive husband. They were going to a wedding. And the woman, who was my client at the time, was wearing a dress that was, I think it was light silver or something like that. And before they were about to leave, okay, they were having drinks with friends at their house. And the woman was wearing a brand new dress. She had bought it for this wedding. It was a very close friend's wedding. She loved the dress. She was all excited. She had told me about the dress in our sessions. Like, I was excited for the dress. Everybody was excited for this dress. And as they're leaving, her husband, air quotes, accidentally spills red wine on her. Okay? Ruined the dress. Right down the center, ruined the dress, had to go and get changed. Now, for those of you listening, ladies, you know that when you buy a dress that you love and it's like you are wearing that dress, it looks good on you, okay? You are wearing it and you're wearing it well. Your significant other is probably so excited to show you off. Look how good you look, tells you how beautiful you look. You're excited to be there and like look good and you feel good about yourself. That's healthy. Now imagine you're with a narcissist. That narcissist, number one, doesn't want you stealing their thunder. Number two, doesn't want you to feel good about yourself, period. They don't want you to feel sexy. They don't want you to feel beautiful. They want to be in charge of that. If you're going to feel happy, it's them making you happy. If you're going to feel confident, they want to be the ones to make you feel confident. They want to be able to manufacture that in you. So this woman felt confident. She looked amazing. She looked sexy. She was ready to go. She was all excited. And this guy spills red wine on her, quote, accidentally. Dress is ruined. She has to change. Now she's in a mood, understandably so, but because it's so damn subtle, she can't say you did that on purpose. Because remember, while she knows he did that on purpose, and she knows he did that on purpose, to the outside world who is unaware of the nuances of this narcissistic abuse, imagine what it looks like for her to say, he purposely spilled red wine on me, on my dress, so that my dress would be ruined, so that we couldn't go to the wedding in what I wanted to wear. could you imagine the people around who love this narcissist because they've been charmed by him going, Jamie, think you're overreacting. Why the hell would he purposely spill red wine on your dress? That makes no sense. And guess what that does? It again gaslights you into thinking maybe you're overreacting, but you probably won't even tell anybody that he did it on purpose. You're going to go along with the whole idea that it's an accident. Why? Because the alternative is just too goddamn difficult to explain. So that, coupled with everybody getting so sick and tired of people using the word narcissist, what you're going to end up with is victims of narcissistic abuse not coming forward, or waiting until they actually have a visible bruise to show people because it's easier, quote, to explain that, or waiting until it's too late and somebody takes their life. And I am that serious about it. So again, for those of you who feel that you're so sick and tired of hearing about this, and everybody just shut the hell up about narcissism, you are lucky. It's a privilege to have that response to that. That's a privilege. The fact that you don't get it, you're lucky. But I ask of you, just because you don't get it, please do not minimize the stories of others because you don't understand. You don't need to understand to be supportive. I don't need to understand something to support something. Somebody's diagnosed with cancer, God forbid. I can still be supportive even though I don't understand their diagnosis of cancer. The equivalent to this would be me saying, I don't understand your diagnosis, therefore, do you really have it? Or, oh my God, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about everybody having breast cancer. You don't really have it. Shut up already. I'm sick of hearing about it. Literally, this is what we're talking about. That's the equivalent. So I'm asking you to please have more compassion and support, even if you don't understand what it means. And that you are lucky if your response is, oh my God, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about this. Part of what I do and why I talk about this and why it's, I guess what I should say is the beneficial part of people being sick and tired of hearing about this is that I can use that to educate people as to the red flags of narcissistic abuse so that they don't need to deal with this. I look at it as preventative medicine. It's like taking vitamins. Think of me as your vitamin. The information I'm giving you hopefully is preventing you from either getting back into a narcissistic abusive relationship, going back into the same one, or just getting into one from the very beginning, because we know there's love bombing in the beginning, but love bombing looks different. Love bombing isn't always a dozen roses every day, isn't always luxurious gifts. Love bombing is basically whatever you value most, whatever you're most passionate about, whatever you love, whatever is important to you, that is what the narcissist is going to attach onto in the beginning of the relationship. So let's say I love hiking, which I don't. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I've never been hiking, but it just looks like something I wouldn't like. I'm more of a lay at the pool and not move. But let's just say that you love hiking, and maybe that'll be my goal for the year. I'll go hiking. I probably won't. So let's say I love hiking and I meet somebody, and let's just say they're a narcissist, but I don't know they're a narcissist yet, because you're never going to know that someone's a narcissist when you first start dating them. That you just won't. They won't show that to you. It's very rare. And so we meet up, and they read in my bio, right, that I love hiking. They don't give a shit about hiking, but guess what they're going to do? They're going to talk to me about hiking as if it's the best thing they've ever done, or they're going to say, oh my God, you love hiking. I've never gone hiking. I really want to go hiking. I feel like I would love it. Maybe we can go sometime. Tell me about hiking. That's love bombing. It's not so much the actual acts that are being done. It's the underlying function. And you hear me say this all the time. What's the function? The function of them talking about hiking is to be able to join with you in an experience to make you believe that you're connected to this person. This person doesn't give a shit about hiking, but they want you to believe that they do, right? So Now, I know people are listening saying, oh, great. So you're telling me that if I go out with somebody who has similar interests in me or takes an interest in me, that they're a narcissist. Okay, great. And this is where I lose people. This is where people are like, enough already with this. But let me finish. It's not just that. It is if you feel or find yourself vomiting personal information about your upbringing, your abusive parent, your traumatic event you went through to somebody who is essentially a stranger, but who has convinced you after 2 phone calls and 2 dates that they're not a stranger. In fact, they think you're their soulmate and you have this crazy connection. If you find yourself verbalizing some deep shit to somebody who you just met, that is a red flag. Why is that a red flag? It is not a normal, healthy process or, let's say, dating, what's the word I'm looking for? Journey, process, typical course. That is something that needs to happen organically. If you hear in the very beginning, you're my soulmate, where have you been all my life? It's like we have this secret language, nobody else. I feel like I've known you in a past life. Run. Please run. Now, I know there's people that are listening. They're going to say, I knew on date number 1 that this person was going to be my wife or be my husband or be my significant other for the rest of eternity. Great, but you are like in the 0.00001%. It is not healthy for a relationship to feel like a tidal wave and for you to get swept off your feet like a Disney fairy tale. That's not normal. We are taught very early on in our society in particular, which will be a whole other episode, that love is supposed to be never changing, that it's consistent, that once you have it, it just grows and it never changes, and that you're going to be swept off your feet and carried off into the sunset. And so we look for this in relationships. That is our barometer. That's what we measure it against. So if you date somebody and they're stable and they're consistent, based off of that, they're going to seem boring as hell. But they're not. They're healthy. We have this idealized version of what we think love and relationships is supposed to be, and it gets us into trouble. Flat out gets us into trouble. I'm not saying, if you have this amazing connection with someone, run. No, it's great. You want to have a connection. You want to be attracted to them sexually, physically, emotionally, cognitively, intellectually. I'm talking about the type of romance where you are swept off your feet. They're whisking you away to some island somewhere. They're buying you these gifts, or it's not even that dramatic. It's just, they match you on every single interest that you have to the point where it feels like soulmates. You need to pay attention to that. Are they actually listening to you? Or are they listening to you for bits of information to use against you at a later time, right? Really what they're doing is they are pulling information from you to store it so that when the manipulation starts, they have enough data on you to use against you. This is why it is extremely detrimental to just poo-poo, oh, she's talking about narcissism again, shut the hell up, because it's preventative. And if you haven't gone through it, and again, your response is, oh, are enough already, then pay attention at the very least to the preventative aspect that I'm talking about, to the red flags, to know what they are. Love bombing is not just always jewelry and vacations and flowers and overdoing it. It's also this odd connection that you seem to have because you match absolutely everything, every interest, every philosophical idea. You do Google searches every night at 3 a.m. on, are we even here? Or, does the world exist? And all these philosophical existential crises that you have. And they're like, oh my God, me too. I do that too. And then they go home and a week's worth of Google searches they'll do, and then they'll screenshot it and see, look, that's not extravagant. But you're going to look at them and be like, oh my God, they Google the same weird shit that I do. Oh my God. That is love bombing also. Okay. It's not extreme. It's not major, majorly showy stuff, but it's a deliberate attempt to trick you into thinking that you are connected on a much deeper level than you are. So again, at least take that in if you've never experienced this, so that this way you don't have to listen to me when you are in it. I mean, as much as I would love for you guys to listen to me, I would love to have you kind of be aware of the red flags. So you don't have to listen to episodes that are about how do you get out of it once you're in it. So here's the other thing that I want to touch on too, as far as the word being thrown around left and right. And also, keep in mind, you want to make sure that the information that you're getting is from a credible source. So while survivor stories, I think, are so unbelievably important, and they are 100% part of the healing journey for someone who's been through this, they are not psychologically or behaviorally beneficial, meaning they tell you about their situation, which is so important because it validates what you're going through. It makes you feel like you're not crazy, because Lord knows when you get out of this, you're going to feel crazy. It makes you feel connected and not alone. What it doesn't do is it doesn't teach you the behavioral strategies to exit or escape this kind of relationship. It doesn't teach you self-regulation. It doesn't teach you emotion regulation. It doesn't teach you how to decenter from your thinking. It doesn't give you the actual behavior strategies. And sometimes what happens is people will get so caught up in all these stories about other people that it ends up serving an avoidance strategy. It's like you want to get all this information about narcissism. So you follow all these people who talk about narcissistic abuse, some very credible, some not at all, some who are self-diagnosed narcissists who are giving you information, which can be helpful from an alternative standpoint. I understand that because it's interesting to hear, but in no way, shape, or form helps you move forward behaviorally. So you really want to make sure that you're getting it from credible sources, not just survivor stories, which again are 100% necessary, but it's not sufficient, if that makes sense. You need to make sure you have the behavioral strategies to get through this. So you have these words being thrown out left and right by people that are sometimes credible, sometimes not credible. And it becomes watered down, right? So when we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, a lot of times people use the word narcissist referring to somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder. And this is what happened in that article or the headline that I just saw, that person's a narcissist because they pinned their jacket back. That has nothing to do with narcissistic personality disorder. Nothing. In fact, I would love for people to just stop using that's narcissistic and say, maybe self-absorbed or so selfish, or just something or whatever. Just not narcissistic, because it takes on a different meaning and it actually makes no sense, because you can't diagnose someone who's a narcissist with one thing, and especially one thing that actually doesn't even fit into criteria. Now, if you have somebody that is constantly doing what they're doing in situations that are inappropriate because they want the attention on them, and then they're belittling other people and blah, 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 and that's different. But that's not what we're talking about. And so I just want people to understand there's an inherent difference in using it as an adjective versus a diagnosis. Narcissistic personality disorder is not an adjective, right? Just like I'm so OCD. No, you're not so OCD. OCD is a debilitating illness where people cannot function. It's not somebody who likes to make their bed every morning. It's not somebody who has to vacuum every day so they can relax. It's not that. It's not somebody who's neat and organized. People who have OCD get absolutely zero enjoyment and pleasure from it. Saying I'm so ADHD. ADHD is not an adjective. Okay? Somebody who just is forgetful could have anxiety or didn't sleep well the night before. ADHD, ADD have a whole host of symptoms, sometimes very subtle, sometimes very overt. Stop. We need to stop. I'm so narcissistic. She's so narcissistic. Stop, please. I beg of you. Beg of you. Now, I hear people say often, all of us have narcissistic traits. I'm going to reword that for you because I think that gets us into trouble too. All of us have traits that come out when we're in situations where we feel more accomplished, where we feel confident, where we feel, let's say, even insecure, where it's like compensatory, where something else comes out to compensate for our insecurity, right? We all have those moments where those traits or characteristics come out. Of course we do. Just like when I'm doing this podcast, I'm talking about something that I have expertise in. So I'm talking about it more confidently. So that trait is showing for me more than if I'm on a podcast talking about electrical wiring. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I'm not going to really put that trait out there. I'm going to be more of a sponge. I'm going to be asking questions. I'm going to be more of a student, not teacher. Somebody who is a narcissist, who has narcissistic personality disorder, can't shift their traits based on the situation they're in. They can mask it and pretend they're something they're not, but that pretending is part of that unhealthy narcissistic trait. The ability to, quote, as people say, be narcissistic in one situation but not in another, inherently, by definition, means you're not a narcissist, because you're able to acknowledge that your confidence in one area doesn't fit in another area, and you're malleable. You're able to move. You're fluid between situations. Narcissist is not fluid. They are who they are in every single situation across the board. So when people say, we're all narcissistic, fine. If you want to call it that, fine. We all have moments and situations where that trait comes out. But that has nothing to do with narcissistic abuse and narcissistic personality disorder. When people comment on that, on my stuff all the time, well, everyone has narcissistic traits. That's great. But those people who, quote, have what you say narcissistic traits, they're not subsequently emotionally abusing their spouse or physically abusing their child or, financially abusing their business partner. They're not belittling and gaslighting and manipulating their loved ones. They're not doing that. They're not a narcissist. That's not what they do. So please keep that in mind. Not everyone is a narcissist. Yes, I know that. Thank God for that. But again, like I said, it is a privilege. It is something that you should feel lucky about, that's your response to it. And then lastly, the other thing I want to speak to is this idea of, that, but it's your mom, but it's your dad, but it's your sister, but it's your spouse. They are doing the best they can. No, not, that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is not somebody who has toxic patterns of behavior that they don't realize that they're doing, and when brought to their attention, they're horrified or upset that they've been hurting you. And while changing toxic patterns is so unbelievably difficult, they're willing to do the work. That is not a narcissist. A narcissist is somebody whose patterns of behavior hurt you, affect you, cause serious damage, and when brought to their attention is met with lack of accountability, rage, neglect, ignoring, silent treatment. It is not met with, I do not mean to hurt you. I am sorry. I will do the work. I'm going to fuck up left and right, but I don't want to hurt you. I understand why I do what I do. I just need to fix it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people for therapy I get that come in and say, I know why I do what I do. Now I need to change my behavior. It's not a narcissist. Narcissist isn't going to say that unless they're being court ordered or court mandated or they want to look good for somebody. But other than that, they're not saying that. So this idea of, but it's your mom, but it's your dad. But if you are dealing with a mom, dad, spouse, boss, sibling that has narcissistic personality disorder, that line of, yeah, but it's your whatever doesn't apply. You are not obligated to stay in a toxic relationship with somebody. And I know when you're married and you have kids, it's different. That's a whole different situation, which I talked about repeatedly on this podcast. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, that line doesn't apply to this. You are not obligated to stay connected to somebody who not only is abusive, but who knows they're abusive and doesn't care that it's hurting you as long as they get their needs met. Okay. So that's very different than somebody who has really unhealthy behaviors and really needs to work on themselves. Chances are the narcissist, I don't care who they work with, they could be with the top narcissistic specialists in the entire world. If they even go to therapy, if they even agree to go because they understand they have narcissistic personality disorder and they want to change, the change is going to be made so minimal and probably will only happen in the session. The ability to apply it outside the session is very small. And then you have to talk about maintaining it. That's a whole other beast. So you need to assume that it's not going to change and that this is what you're up against. And please stop thinking that, you need to stay in there. You need to hang in there because it's your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother. But also simultaneously, please don't minimize your experience because you don't want to be met with, oh my God, not everybody is a narcissist. It's your family. Figure it out. I mean, everybody has family issues. Absolutely, everybody has family issues. Correct. But not everybody's family issues are because of a narcissist. And that's the difference. So I hope that helped to kind of clear things up. I was going to go a totally different route, but I just saw that this morning and it was something that I wanted to discuss. So I have a lot of this on my website, drjamiezuckerman.com. I have a ton of this on my virtual courses, which is on my website under the workshops tab. And a lot of strategies on how to deal in the moment with narcissistic abuse you can find in both my books, Find Your Calm and 5 Good Habits, which are on Amazon. I have it linked to my website and found wherever you buy your books. So I hope that was helpful. And, as always, leave us a review. Leaving a review helps us know what you want to hear more about and also helps the podcast so that we can help you. Everybody have a great day, and I will see you next time on Next Up Narcissism. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. I hope you found it useful, but most importantly, I hope you found it validating. Want to work one-on-one with me? Visit my website at drjamiezuckerman.com to book a personalized coaching session, and be sure to check out my on-demand workshops on topics like co-parenting with a narcissist, life after leaving, anxiety management strategies, and more. Again, that's drjamiezuckerman.com. You'll also find links to my interactive workbooks, merchandise, resources, and newsletter sign up. Next Up Narcissism is as much your podcast as it is mine. I want to hear your feedback and what you want to hear. So make sure to leave a podcast review wherever you listen or send an email to nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Again, that's nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to tune in next week to see what's up next on Next Up Narcissism.